This is session 4, Ansible variable. Variable is a very common term for any language. But there are two things here. One is fact and second is variable. Fact is something which is collected from other machines, from remote targets. Variable is something which is defined by user. Can we say that facts are also variable? Of course we can say that. Is there any difference? Yes. Facts and variables overlap in the definition, and if 90% they are same thing, but there is one difference as well. So in this session we will understand the facts, how do we gather facts, how can we create custom facts, and what are the variables. So this lecture is about variables, which is a common practice for any programming language. So whether it is Ansible or which is an infrastructure tool, I'll not call it a programming language, but which gives you all the constructs of a programming language that includes selection, iteration, repetition, and all these things, and blocks of code. So Ansible also offer variables, how they are used in the playbooks. In this session, you will understand how to get the values of these variables, how to print and how to display the data types of the underlying variables. What are the data types supported with Ansible? With this session, this is going to be a very crucial subject, very crucial topic from your overall learning of Ansible. Reason being, you will not be able to survive without fully understanding the variables. If you want your own custom variables to be declared, if you want to use them in the playbook, in multiple playbooks, or if you have two playbooks which are linked with each other and you want to pass on variable from one playbook to another, how can we do that? That's called registering the variables. So this session is going to be important, and though easy, I'll not say that it's difficult, it's very easy subject because there's no technical syntax, not very complex topic. So variables, Ansible can work with metadata. Now metadata is the data about resources that include the data itself. Like if I collect the details about you or any other student and I capture those details. So what details I'm capturing, that is metadata. The details I'm capturing, that is data. But data about this, what I'm capturing is metadata. So whatever Ansible has to provision, has to manage on a remote machine, it first need to know, it must need to first collect the metadata, means data about those sources. Like for example, it must know what all packages are running, what all software are running on the remote machine, what all hardware the machine have, what all IP addresses the machine have, what is the architecture of that remote machine. Because everything is dependent, everything is uh, dependency tree is always there. When you're using, for example, if you want to install web server, it will be different if you're using Ubuntu, package name will be different, command will be different, module will be different. If you want to use Apache, then command will be different. So I'm in the CentOS or Red Hat family. So for Red Hat family, package name is different. For Ubuntu family, package name is different. So you must know what is running on that remote machine. Similarly, the IP addresses, you want to configure some server, you want to configure some software. If you need to know the host name, all machines may have a different host name and may have similar name, may have group of packages. So we need to know what the data about that machine is, what is the facts about that machine. So Ansible can work with metadata from various sources and manage their context in the form of variables. So we can have inventory variables, we can have command line parameters, we can have place and task where we can define variables, we can have variables coming from files, we can have variables used in roles. Variable can be anywhere. They find use in every aspect of Ansible. The facts, variable discovered or collected from systems are called facts. Ansible collect the information about the remote host as it runs a playbook on that machine, on that remote host. The task of collecting this remote system information is called as gathering facts by Ansible. So this is a common term we use while we learn Ansible, that Ansible collect facts from remote systems, and that's called gathering facts. And the details collected are generally known as facts or variables. Sometimes they are used interchangeably but cannot be used always interchangeably. This information can be obtained manually using ad hoc command as we learned, and a specialized module named setup. In fact, Ansible Playbook calls this setup module by default to perform gathering facts task always. Facts are automatically available and discovered at runtime. That's the difference. The facts are automatically available and discovered at runtime, whereas variables are user defined. So the only difference is if you as a user create a variable, if user define a variable, that is user defined variable. If it is already existing information about the remote machine, about the target, that is called fact. For example, architecture, you cannot define the architecture, it's there, that's why we call it as fact. The package is available on the machine, you cannot define them as variables, they are fact, they are already there, so they are not user defined. Whereas if you want to define your own machine with some, give it a name, a tag name, or you want to call the machine or something, or you want to define some attribute about the machine yourself manually to identify that machine, or about any package. So when you want to call something yourself with a different name, that you define, and that's called variable. What is collected from the remote machines? This information include the Ansible architecture, operating system version, BIOS information, date and time, uptime, IP address, hardware information, to mention just a few. It is actually a huge set of information. To get facts about any system, simply use the setup module. Ansible-m setup hostname. We learned that in one of our previous session where I discussed and demonstrated ad hoc commands. Ansible-m setup, machine name tester1. So this means we are collecting the facts from tester1. And this is the screen grab on the output, like an Ansible server-m setup. And this is how you gather the information. This is how you capture the information. So Ansible facts start from here. Ansible all IPv4 addresses, and you see here in square bracket. So whatever you see in square bracket, you will find them comma separated within double quotes. So there are three elements in this list. So whenever you see the elements are in square bracket, we call that as list. That's the data type in Ansible. Then after that, you see another key, Ansible all IPv6 for addresses. This is another list. But what about this? After the square bracket is closed, you see Ansible app or more. This is using curly braces. If you see curly braces, you will find that with a key and a value, means which is in the form of key value pair. So if we use this key value pair, this is called dictionary. Dictionary. Now, apart from dictionary, there is another variables also which are directly no square bracket, no curly braces, straight away the key and the value. We call them as unsafe text. Ansible unsafe text. So these are the data types which Ansible uses for the variables. These are the three data types, nothing more than that. So we can have dictionary variables, we can have list variables, and we can have unsafe text. These are the four possible values. If you want to get individual value from these collected facts, how can we do that? How can we refer to that? Let's understand the use of these facts. Ansible facts are handy in helping the system administrators which operations to carry out on the target. For instance, depending on the operating system, they are able to know which software packages needs to be installed and how they are to be configured, etc. User defined variables. We looked at facts which are automatically available, and amount of data that is discovered is overwhelming. However, it does not provide us with every attribute of our infrastructure that we need, because we may need some additional information which we want to categorize, we want to define. For example, Ansible cannot discover which port we want our web server to listen to. We are going to configure it. So we don't know, that's not there. So we have to define it. Which user should own a process? The user may exist or may not exist. So what that user should be? I want to define it. Or which system and user needs to create with which authorization rules. Ansible would not know that, because I want to define these things while running the playbook on the target. So this kind of data which is not available on the system, which I have in my mind, which I want Ansible to use on working or playing the playbook on the remote host, then I have to define it, and that's a user defined variable. All this data is external to the system profile, and it is to be provided by us, the users. That's why we call it as user defined for sure. But how and where we should we define it? That's interesting thing. We'll look at a couple of examples. Ansible offers a lot of flexibility to users to configure portions of their infrastructure divergently. For example, all Linux hosts in a production environment should use local package repositories of or web servers in staging and should run on port number 8080. These are the places from where Ansible can accept variables. You can define, so you can define variables in default directory inside a role. Inventory variables like host var, group vars, these are parameters which we define in inventory if you recollect, and define in a separate directories. Host or group var parameters defined in the inventory file. Variables in the playbook and role parameters, var directory inside the role and variable defined inside a play. Extra variable provided with -e option at runtime also. All these are places where you can define variables in Ansible. How to define it? After looking at where to define the variable from, we'll start looking at how to define it at various places. Here are some simple rules you can use to form a valid Ansible variable. A variable should always start with a letter. It can contain letters, numbers, underscore. Like app underscore port is a valid, whereas hyphen is invalid. So you cannot use hyphen. User ID underscore 5 is allowed, underscore is allowed, and it's start with alphabet. So it is starting with number, so this is invalid. Log directory is allowed, dot is not allowed in the variable, so this is invalid. So this is valid. So numbers, letters, underscore, no hyphen, underscore is allowed. Cannot start with a number. These are the rules to define variables. Now custom facts. What if you want to create a fact on a remote machine, on the remote machine itself, and which you want Ansible to collect, to work on? The first step is to create a directory on that remote machine. You don't need Ansible on that machine, but still the path must match. I repeat, you don't need this directory etc ansible facts.d. That does not mean that you have to install Ansible on remote machine, but path should be this, because Ansible will read content from this directory. So create this directory on the remote machine. on the managed node or the remote node. Inside this directory, create a file or files with .fact extension, that is fact. This file or files should return, not will return, I must say, should return JSON data with those data types as I discussed, that is a dictionary or list or unsafe text. It cannot be anything else apart from the three data types which are supported by Ansible. So this JSON must return either list or dictionary or unsafe text when this playbook is run on Ansible control node, which is inclusive of other facts that Ansible retrieve after a playbook is run. Let's take an example. Example of custom fact, and we just want to define date time. Just to give an example, date underscore time dot fact. So this is going to be the name of the fact, date time, and fact is mandatory extension, mandatory file name ending with, it should end with the .fact, that retrieve date and time from the remote machine. So on the remote machine, where you want to define this, you make a directory -p etc ansible facts.d. So you make the directory and then you create the file vi etc ansible facts.d date time.fact. Now this is a simple shell script. It is calculating, fetching the date, current date into the variable date uppercase, and then it is displaying it with curly braces in double quote because I'm using escape character slash to escape this, to put the double quote here, and then date, then again escape character double quote. So it will write date inside this, and after that colon, and then again escape character double quote means it will be printed double quote as it is with the current value of date which is captured here as an example. So within curly braces, this is interpolation of variables. So it will print the value of the date in double quote, and this is a very simple example in curly braces. That means it is example of dictionary variable. So this is how you will create this. This is how you can create. It is returning a dictionary type of element. Based on this output, you can easily understand that. Now assign execute permission because this needs to be executed. So chmod command in Linux is used to change the permission to make it executable, and then log in as Ansible user and then create the directory as we created as we work. We already done that base directory. Go to the directory base, create the playbook checkdate.yml under the project directory, and this is a simple playbook. Three dashes, as I explained earlier, YML uses three dashes to separate the directives from the document content. This also serves as signal the start of a document if no directives are present. For example, this YML 1.2 and tag names and so forth. So, and after that we are starting our document, our Ansible file, the playbook. So tasks, name, get custom facts, debug, message custom fact is, and this is how you call it. Ansible local is the data structure, is the array where all custom facts are stored, and the file name is your fact name. The file name, that file name dot fact. So it was date underscore time dot fact. So that's the fact name you will get. So when you run this, this is the screen grab. When you run it, this is the configuration file. We already created it, ansible.cfg file, and then run it. Append the fact file to Ansible local variables. The Ansible underscore local store all the custom facts declared. Now run the playbook and see the information, and this is what it is. So this is the message you get. Ansible playbook checkdate.yml, and this is the date equal to this in curly braces. That means this is a dictionary item created by Ansible, and that will save my time in editing the video because recording is going on. So I will simply edit this part. I'll remove this part. How do we use facts in the playbook? You can use all these variables in your playbooks. You can also embed them in the template using Jinja 2 templating engine as we discussed in the previous lecture, the templating concept. These variables could be used for requirements like conditional based execution. As an example, when remote hostname is tester1, do this. When the remote server's operating system is Red Hat, to get remote box information like host name, fully qualified domain name, MAC address, network interface details, etc., and then use them in the playbook wisely. What are the types of facts? To use the variable in your playbook and succeed at it, you have to keep in mind the type of variable you are trying to access. As I discussed, there are three types. Ansible gathered facts or playbook variable belong to one of the three types: dictionary, list, and Ansible unsafe text. So, in order to get the value of the required variable, you have to use a proper syntax. Like if it is dictionary, you have to use it in a different way to get the value of a particular dictionary element. If it is a list, you have to use it in a different way. There's a syntax for all the three, different syntax. So this is the same screenshot. You can see that Ansible facts. So when we see in square bracket, that is list or array. When you see in curly braces, that is dictionary, and individual element without curly braces or square bracket, that is called Ansible unsafe text. These are examples. Ansible provide a filter with the name type underscore debug to get the underlying Python data type of the variable or fact. The syntax to use the module is here: variable name, then type debug with this vertical bar, that is filter. Ansible will recognize it. So you can use these facts in your playbook for accomplishing various requirements. For example, to get the default IPv4 address of a host, we can use, because now we are trying to understand how to get the individual value from a list item, because IPv4 addresses, if you recollect, they were in the form of list items. So we use this Ansible default IPv4 dot address. So that's how you get the individual element IPv4 address. And similarly, if you have another data type, we can check that also. And this example will show you that not only the data type, but how to get the value as well. To display the data type of each variable and then print the value from them. So this simple example, simple playbook would display not only the value of a variable of a different type, but also their data type. Now see, Ansible variable example playbook name, where it is to be played on the server. What is the task? Debug. The message, data type of Ansible architecture. This is the name of the variable. So I want to display it as it is. Ansible architecture and filter type debug. So this will show you the data type of Ansible underscore architecture variable. Similarly, data type of Ansible app armor is Ansible app armor underscore this vertical bar, that is filter type debug. So this will display these all IPv4 addresses. So this is a list, so it should display the list. Again, variable name, filter, type debug. To get a good hands-on confidence on how to get the data type of underlying variable, because then you can use this in some conditional expression to specify if this is the data type, use this command or use this syntax. Printing the value of the facts. This is what a very good simple example is. Ansible architecture, because it is Ansible unsafe text. So you simply have to display the variable, put the variable into double curly braces. If it is a dictionary item, this is unsafe text. If it is dictionary, you have to provide the app armor dot key. The key is status here. Ansible app armor dot status. So this is how you specify the key. If it is list item and you want to print all list items or use all list items, you can use all IPv4 addresses, means just the name of the array or name of the list. You don't provide any index. But to get a specific element from the list, like element number 2, which is index wise, because index start from 0, so the second element will be represented by 1. So if you want the second element from IPv4 addresses, you'll use something like this: Ansible all IPv4 addresses and the index number, which index you want. So the examples given in the playbooks in my lab assignment, if you've tried all these things, probably you have already practiced these things. If you have not completed the lab, if you have already completed the lab, I'm sure you are well versed with the dictionary and elements of variables and the data types and this. That's all for this session. Thank you very much.